Yumiko's latest pinch collection includes all of your favorite styles, reimagined with a classic pinch front neckline. In a dual launch with their brand new official 2020 colors, a few colors have made a triumphant return and new options have also become available. Start off the new year with a fresh look in the studio and personalize your own pinch front Leo through your local store or browse the various ready-to-wear options available online. Shop online at yumiko.com. This episode is brought to you by the Town of Vail, a sponsor helping to host the Vail Dance Festival in our community. I'm Rebecca King-Ferraro.
And I'm Michael Breeden, and you're listening to Conversations on Dance.
We are back from our break and want to wish everyone a happy new year. We have a lot of exciting things coming up that we can't wait to share with you. Please subscribe to this podcast through your favorite podcast app to stay up to date on all of our newest episodes. This week, for our very first episode of 2020, we are joined by Hope Boykin, dancer with Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater from the 2019 Vail Dance Festival. Hope is from Durham, North Carolina, and attended Howard University. She was a student and intern at the Ailey School before going on to join the company. She was also an original member of Complexions, was a member of Philadanco, and received a New York Dance and Performance Award or a Bessie Award. We talk with Hope about her journey with dance as a youth, the challenges she faced, her now 20 years with Ailey, her work as a choreographer, and her personal podcast. Hope brings such light and optimism to this chat, and we can't wait to share her with you.
Hi, Hope. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank
you just got
you.
in last night. You've barely been here, even haven't not even yet a day, but you came on over to see us, and we really appreciate it.
I am thrilled. I'm thrilled. I love all things podcasts.
And we just heard that you have your own podcast, so we're definitely going to circle back to that in a little bit.
Great.
But we're just going to start at the beginning. We want to hear about how you got your initial start in dance.
Oh, my mom took me to the local Dolly Dinkle where I did a half hour of tap, a half hour jazz, half hour ballet, one leotard, change the skirts. And I loved it. I competed a little bit with gymnastics, maybe up until like 8th grade before when you could still actually get a perfect 10. Now you can't, and I danced until like I felt like I didn't want to dance anymore. It was taking up too much time, and I wanted to be a little more social.
Yeah.
And
how old were you about that time where you were like,
like 13,
Yeah.
like decision making,
like
Yeah.
And then an Olympic festival came to Durham. I'm from Durham, North Carolina, and they had auditions, and there was a woman who was choreographing it, named Nina Wheeler, and she was actually a student of the woman that I went to dancing school. That's how we call it, dancing school, and I loved it. I loved her, and found out she had a full school. Most of the people who were in the Olympic Festival who danced were her students in some way or another. And I just fell into time with her. And maybe I was 15. I didn't quite have my license yet, but I remember when I got my license, I was there at the studio all the time. And then I was doing competition. Also, my junior year, the summer of my junior year in high school, I attended the American Dance Festival, which is in Durham.
Right.
And I had no idea how much modern dance was already infused in what I felt.
Right.
And I worked with some people who are no longer here, some of the original pioneers of dance, of modern dance. And I had no idea I was gaining all that information.
So seeing that festival, was that something that was really, had an impact on you and made you think like, this is maybe something I would do professionally?
I think so, because it definitely was more than a spark, because there was no reason for me to think that people danced all day.
Yeah.
Like having a career in dance, getting a paycheck, going to, I used to call ADF the summer school of dance. It didn't dawn on me that people could do this. I saw what was on television.
Mm-hmm.
I knew there were auditions. I knew about Broadway,
Mm-hmm.
but concert dance didn't hit me until then.
Yeah.
And I was truly in awe of all of those artists that they'd given so much of their time, and they weren't that much older than me at that point. You know, being a junior in high school and meeting people who were 21 who were in these jobs, it didn't make sense. Didn't quite compute.
Right.
But I came from a family where my mom was the first person to go to college, and she went at 15, and then then she graduated from college at 18.
Wow.
So everything was education based.
Yeah.
Wow.
Everything's geared toward being better than I was.
Right. Right.
So stopping to dance was not. It was a hobby.
Right.
Or that's what it was supposed to
Right.
be.
Right. So you mentioned working with some of the pioneers of dance that you maybe didn't realize at the time how important they were. Who were some of those people that you were working with at that time?
Yeah, Lucas Hoving, Pauline Connor, Pearl Primus, Tally Beatty, Donald McHale, who passed away last year, Bernard Johnson, Fred Benjamin. Martha Myers was, running the school at the time with Charles Reinhardt and his wife Stephanie. And it was like people knew so many things. They knew, Paul Taylor's company would come and perform, and you didn't realize Paul Taylor was there.
Right.
Right.
Or
what that meant. Yeah.
Like what? What's happening? So all of a sudden, the gap and the bridge from what I saw on television or on Great Performances. I don't know if it was called Great Performances then, but like the PBS specials with dance.
Yeah, people talk about that all the time.
Those people were in front of me.
Yeah.
And it was hard to understand that here I am in this town, and I didn't think would be much of. I mean, it was there. It was always offering it to me, and I didn't know it.
Yeah.
So you did end up going to college. You were saying that it was a very big drive in your family. The education was very important. How did you sort of reconcile that with your new ambitions to maybe dance professionally? Were you thinking throughout college like that the goal was still to dance professionally?
Well, I was in my sophomore year. I was an apprentice for a dance, like a pickup dance company that was in Washington D.C. because I went to Howard University, and that summer I was doing some teaching, and then the apprenticing with them. They called people who graduated from the High School of Performing Arts there, Duke Ellington, and there were all kinds of people. And they were dancing with Joffrey, they were dancing with Phil, they were dancing with Ailey, they were dancing with all of these companies, and everyone was in this one place. And so one man that I met there said, "Oh, well, if you ever want to come to New York, you could stay with me." And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I went through another semester, and the second semester of my junior year, I took a semester off, and my mother stopped speaking to me for a moment.
Right. But it was that big of a deal.
It was a big deal, because I also cut my hair that same year. And that was devastating. Yeah, but I couldn't afford, like if I was going to move to New York, I couldn't afford to go to the salon. There's just things I had to give up.
Yeah.
And so that was the easiest way for me to do it. And I loved it. So I left school. I didn't graduate. I left, but I only went thinking it was going to be a semester, and that I just wanted to see where I fit in the level of people, to see if I could hang with them.
So you must have fit pretty well then.
Well, it's interesting. So I sort of am on the platform of, if I can do it, you can do it. I've created my own lane. I was never the typical, I shouldn't say never. I am not what people typically thought of a dancer at that time. My, one of those big, bulky one of those big bulky ballet books said that your thigh and your calf should be the same size. No, I promise you it's in print, and I can't remember the name of it. But I was like, that's not me. That your head should be small. It was. I was like, wow, okay. Well, let me just see what's going to happen. And so I spent a year at the Ailey School, and I did my final performance. I had no idea what I was going to do after that, but it was a program called the January Explosion, and Matthew Rushing, who was a new member of the company then, said, "I want to do a solo for you." We'd become friends. And I danced to Always Something There to Remind Me, Dionne Warwick. And we had 2 performances of this. And the second night of the performance, Dwight Rhoden tapped me on my shoulder and said, I'm doing a little a pickup concert. Would you like to be in it? And I was like, okay. Little did I know that I was going to be on stage with many Ailey company members, professional company members, Lara Lubavitch company members. I had no idea. Here are all these friends of theirs coming together, and I'm on stage with Desmond Richardson, like, what's going on? And then I realized that I'm an original member of Complexions. What? So, he gave me a little envelope at the end of the performance, and it had a check in it. And I was like, what? Wait a minute. And I got a write-up, actually, in that performance, for that performance at Symphony Space. And the day after that performance, I auditioned for Philadanco, and I got into Philadanco's company. So I was there for 6 years.
That's amazing.
So was that your only show you did with Complexions then?
Well, I was also in the second year.
Right,
so I did other performances with them as long as I could finagle the back and forth. That's when I was taking the bus, you know. But it was something I would do all over again. I don't even remember the struggle. I just remember feeling like, why am I here with all these people who were doing amazing things?
But I just love how seamless that was, from a place of like, I'm just doing what makes my heart happy, to like, oh, and now I have a job.
Yeah, crazy.
Yeah.
But it wasn't as easy. It wasn't easy.
Right, of course.
But my mom reminded me once that she sent me a card. It was like Valentine's Day, and she listed all of the no's that I'd heard. And I didn't remember that people had been telling me no. No, you can't get the scholarship there. No, you're too heavy. No. And she wrote down all of the things that had happened, and they didn't affect me. I mean, when I got into Philadanco, I didn't dance in the company. I didn't dance with the company for 8 months because she wanted me in my best body. She didn't say I had to look like anyone else. She just said, I need you in your best body. So for 8 months, I didn't perform. But when I did, forget about it. I was so happy. Can you imagine 8 months of angst and knowing the steps and thinking that you could be there? So that was like the first real blessing that I had.
I feel like that's maybe that language that you just said, be it your best body, is different language than we hear in ballet companies.
What we like to call fat talks.
Right. Yeah, it's a little more like, you don't look
us.
in shape, or we need you to lose weight, like that sort of thing. Do you feel like you maybe had that experience was a little more careful in the way it was presented to you, that it didn't really affect you, or did it affect you?
No, it did. And it did, but there are people who tell you things as truth tellers, and they have nothing to lose and everything to gain by helping you.
Right.
That's how I took it. I didn't take it that way at first. It definitely hurt. Yeah. There were definitely the fat talks. There were definitely the you need to lose weight. But I also felt like I felt like there was a project. Right. I was part of a project, and I needed to do my best. And I am not at my best right now. Actually, I probably never felt so out of my best. But there's something about getting older. I'm an older dancer. I've this is my 20th season with Ailey. So just knowing that there are people, I was in the company and some people were just being born, that I work with. And that's okay. It's just that now what I have to discover what a new best body is. I mean, have you tried to put on clothes that you wore in high school? It just, you're just not the same person. Like you're not the same. Yeah. And so at some point I have to be okay with not being the same, but then reaching for a new best. A friend of mine said to me, gave me this list of like the 10 rules of life. And number 9 is, I don't remember any of them, but number 9. Number 9 says when you're there becomes a here, you have to get a new there. And then number 10 is forget everything you read.
And you did forget them all. Yeah. Except for 9 seems to be.
Except for 9. 9 was important, yeah.
So it seems like you really have a very well-rounded thought process on this. The fact that people have talked to you about your weight and you just seem to talk about it in a really healthy way. Is that something that you really had to work on to get to that point to feel okay about it? Or have you always just been like, you know what, I'm going to do me? And
no, I used to, I say used to, meaning maybe 2 days ago, would wear it as a security blanket because it can be the excuse that I use. Oh, well, I wasn't chosen for that because they think I'm too heavy. It's almost, I'd rather have them say that than I can't
do
it.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
So then I started to be the poster child for it's okay, but I started to see more dancers of color, more women who said, they told me I didn't fit, but then I saw you perform. And if I am supposed to be the poster child for you can create a lane, then okay.
Yeah.
As painful as it is, I look in the mirror and I'm not satisfied all the time. I just gave a talk for the Lincoln Center at Summer Education Forum, and I told them that there are certain things you get older, you can't help that. You're not as agile as you used to be. You kind of can't help that.
Yeah.
But I can help what goes in and out of my mouth. I can help how much I go to the gym. I have to take responsibility. So I would never blame someone else. But when am I going to remind someone else that that's not their best body? I can be conscious of how I say it, but if I didn't have those truth tellers, then I probably would just be bitter instead of better.
How do you think that people can go about identifying what is their best bodies? Like, I think about that. Like, you just think, how many dancers have we known? The range, people who could, be stuffing their face with McDonald's all day long and are going to be,
is that not
like
annoying?
this big.
What is that? They look like a knife.
Yeah. And then you have people that no matter what are going to be built more athletically or have a harder time getting weight off. But that doesn't mean that they don't have something to say as an artist. And how do people like that, how can we nurture that so that they still feel comfortable being in the dance world and valued?
I looked up the word aesthetic, and it bothered me so much when people would say, "Oh, that's a beautiful aesthetic," and I was like, "Well, whatever, who are you to decide what it is?"
Yeah,
and it does serve two purposes, but the shocking definition of aesthetic simply says concerned with beauty, and then what?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean?
What does that mean? So then who decides what the aesthetic is?
The standard, yeah.
The aesthete. Who was that?
Yeah.
Who did we give permission? And so because we listened, because we believed them, then we said that must be right.
And you perpetuate that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we all do. We say, are your eyes too close together? Or, how big are your lips? Are your arms too long? And so it becomes a two thing. And even tomorrow night, there, in the work that I'm doing, there's a segment of the text, and it says, "You are too beautiful, too everything and enough," because we don't hear too
as a
qualified
positive.
with that.
Yeah.
We tell people they're too skinny or they're too fat, and it's still negative.
Yeah.
But you are too beautiful, too everything, too enough. And we can't worry about what they do. It only matters, I'm quoting myself, but it only matters who I am and what I strive to be and what I leave as my legacy, And if we teach them that, then maybe they'll do that. But we've got to teach them from the beginning. We are beautifully or perfectly and wonderfully made, period. We can accessorize ourselves with some push-ups and healthy eating because generally if you eat better, you'll function better.
Right.
But
about fueling your body.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But just that's why veganism doesn't work for some people and vegetarianism doesn't work for others. But you can be as healthy all day long and still trip off the side of a curb,
right?
Or be, so there's so many factors in being our best. We just have to make sure that we are doing all we can. And I tell my students this: create a list of awesome. They're like, what is that? I said, so list all the things that you are really good at and you're proud of with yourself. And they list the things. So then when you are adding to that list, you're not checking off negatives.
Right.
You're adding positives to a thing that's already present and current. So we're not forced to look at the negative things, which is what our teachers are supposed to tell us.
Right.
It's their job they sign a contract. We sign a contract as educators to make sure they know they weren't right. That count wasn't right. And then we have to also remind ourselves that we have to be responsible for how right we are. I think.
Did you just solve all the world's problems here today?
No.
Not quite, but
Not quite.
some of them.
As long as that guy is still over there, then we're struggling. Oh, sorry.
Feeling a little bit better.
Well, art is inherently political,
It
right?
is. It is. Mhm.
So, and we will get to your creation and your work that we'll be seeing here. But I want to circle back a little bit and talk about your career as a dancer. So you were at Philadanco for 6 years, you said. Did you transition directly to Ailey from there? So what was that choice for you? What made you say either I'm ready to move on from this company or Ailey was the goal? So what was that transition like?
Honestly, there are a lot of different aspects to the transition, but I wanted to do Revelations. And you can only do Revelations at the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. I loved Matthew Rushing, and I had been friends for a long time. I would get his backstage pass, and I would walk in the backstage, walk through the pass door and up to the gallery and crawl because the spot ops were up there. So they could see if there was someone in the gallery and they weren't selling the gallery. So I'd crawl down into the front row and sit so my eyes were just above looking over the railing every night.
What an incredible view, I'm sure.
Yeah.
The best seat in the
I
house.
saw so much. I learned so much. Someone would say, "Oh, I did that role." I said, "Well, yeah, I know. I saw you." Well, I was only doing, I consumed it and I wanted it. And this is when I was at the school. So what else would I want to do now? I was completely fulfilled at Philadanco because a lot of the choreography they did, a lot of the masterpiece works that we performed were by choreographers that I looked up to that also worked with Ailey. Tally Beatty was one of them, and I assisted him at the American Dance Festival. So to have him in my ear after he passed away doing work at Philadanco, it was a rejuvenating thing. Knowing that his name was on one of the early posters when they're announcing the Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater, work by Tally Beatty, it just seemed like the next cycle. It seemed like what was in store for me.
Right.
But the days are long and the years are short. And there were some long days.
Absolutely. So once you joined the company, what were some of the first things you started to do with Alvin Ailey? Some of your first repertoire that you were, maybe things that you had seen and you were like, yes, I wanted to do that.
Yeah, you are not a member of the company until you do Buked in Yellow, which is the opening and the closing of Revelation. And then Night Creature, which he choreographed in 1974 with to Duke Ellington's music, like a jazzy, balletic, happy contradiction in terms of a work. And those were the first two things that I got in. And then we also have the ability to be in new works because the choreographer might come in and is looking at the company flat. I mean, of course, they may have seen things, but if there were eight of us that came in that year. So there was a lot of turnover. I got to dance in Ronald K. Brown's Grace, which his company is just celebrating the 20th anniversary of doing Grace, which is bananas because to be a part of that legacy is wonderful. Soon after, Dwight and Desmond came and set a work called Chocolate City. That is the name of a song. Chocolate Session. And then he came back and did Bounty Verses. So I was in those works. I was in works by Donald Byrd. It was just really wonderful to know that I had a history that I had found in my hometown and didn't even know dance was that powerful in Durham.
Right.
And that I'm still living that history. I mean, there's some works that I didn't get to perform, and I didn't get to perform them because this body wasn't suited for those works. But, I try not to look at what I didn't do and look and see what I was able to accomplish. Because someone's always watching you. And if the little girl who, was watching who sees herself on stage through me, then I'm okay.
I think that's such an important thing that sometimes it can get lost how much representation matters. Like, I mean, me personally, growing up gay, I didn't now when I think of how many gay characters are on TV, and that wasn't the case when I was a kid. And like,
5 years ago.
how much?
What?
25?
Right. Okay, right. Yeah,
But
like when
Yeah. And you think back to like how you could have felt lost at that point, and then, if you can offer that to someone now, how precious that is.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, even when you talk about representation and politically how uncomfortable the world is now, I say often that there's so much discomfort in our culture, but being a woman who wants to create, who wants to dance and present themselves because of a love for it, and then being a Black woman, and then I'm a dark-skinned Black woman, all of the things that are equated with a lack of beauty, then there's that tussle too. I mean, there's we hear often, especially now, we hear about white privilege a lot, but I deal with light privilege, dealing with other dancers who may appear to be pretty because their skin is more fair. That is also a torturous thing that I have to tell that young dark-skinned woman, you are beautiful. You are exactly the way you're supposed to be made. And those aspects of representation also matter. And I'm just learning to talk about them because I never felt like I needed to. But I think I was wearing my skin as an accessory because I was so focused on the work, the dance, that I realized I have to wear it and wear all of it and not be afraid to talk about it. Not in an angry way, just matter of factly, this is who I am, and I want you to not accept me because you need one, but I want you to accept me because I'm excellent at this, and then you can claim that now you have a good one, the best one, the one that should be at the top of the list, not just because I fit a category.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it reminds me of when we were talking to Pam Tanowitz about being a female choreographer. Like, on the one hand, it is, you don't want to be othered, that you don't want to be, oh, I'm just here because I'm a woman. But then you think of how representation matters, and then it's like a responsibility that you're being called to, rather than just like, well, I'd love it if we could just focus on the art. That's not, unfortunately, the world we live in right now.
Right. And I met her at ADF.
Oh, really?
Yep.
That's amazing.
That's crazy.
Isn't that something?
What
Wow.
was she wasn't choreographing.
She was a
dancing.
student.
She was a student.
Like me.
Oh, that's so
That's
cool.
so cool.
Have you seen each other here
Yeah,
yet?
we did.
Oh,
we did.
good.
Yeah.
That's really fun.
We keep up with each other. Like we run into each other at the right time.
Oh.
And I'm really pleased to see her name everywhere.
Yeah.
Like it tickles me because I know, okay, so the work pays off. It might not come as quickly or as easily.
Right.
But actually everyone has to work.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Who will get you in the door, but what you do keeps you in the room.
Right.
I tell my students that nepotism is real.
Yeah.
However, once you get in there, it's all you.
Right.
But she's really forged a path that is awesome.
Yeah. So great. So you, being with Ailey for 20 years, you've seen the company really change over all that time. So what are some of the things that stand out to you that have really changed between when you joined the company and where it is now?
I don't think so. When I joined the company, I was 27. Oh God, I just told you I was 47. Okay.
I mean, that's what an incredible career.
So
Unbelievable.
Thank you. But I got in the company, I feel like late. I mean, there are of course people who also have had other company experiences and they come in to Ailey as second or third company, but walking in, knowing that there are people there that I could have birthed and called child,
Yeah, totally.
It's huge.
Right.
And it's not like a strain on my ego, but you start to notice and feel the body change.
Right.
I mean, I'm sure you can remember the day when touching your toes changed. Like you could wake up, you didn't have to warm up
because our bodies hurt.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm like, I'm so jealous of that. Like at 28, we were like, bye bye.
Yeah.
But you probably have preserved yourself in a different way, and it's also cool to be able to say and be in your best selves when you take your walk, but yeah, the youthfulness, the ability that what people are demanding of dancers now, I think is outrageous, exciting, and unfortunate because I don't really think that some choreographers care about the longevity of the artist. With all of the tubes, the YouTubes, like I said, the me and the YouTube, when you see someone doing some unbelievable stuff, then your student wants to try that unbelievable stuff. And then the teacher's like, well, if we're going to compare ourselves to this unbelievable stuff, but do the dancers know what their bones are called? Do they know how many bones are in the foot? Do they know that every time they land on concrete, 10 times their weight lands on each bone? Do they know that when you're asking them to do those things? When you put one leg on the 4-foot mat and the other one on the 4-foot mat.
That just makes me cringe.
And, you're almost better being tight. But now everyone wants, because it preserves your body, but now everyone wants to be uber everything.
Right.
And it's a problem. And they, come into summer programs at 14 already having 2 surgeries. And you're like, well, what do you expect? I call it by any means necessary dancing. It's unnecessary.
Well, there's so many teachers who aren't focusing on just like simple things. Like when we teach and when I go in sometimes places and I just see pliés with wacky turnout and knees pointing towards the front of the room, toes pointing the other way. I'm like, your knee is not gonna, And it's like they won't listen too because they want that perfection of that super turned out position, and it's just not sustainable.
Yeah. Have you ever realized that all you have to do is have a proper building and have your occupancy checked for your properly raised, funded building to have a dance school? You do not have to have credentials.
Oh, yeah.
All you have to do is want
to
have a dance school and a little money. So good luck.
Yeah.
Because some parents look at it as expensive babysitting, but they know where their child is.
Right.
And then there are people who are just exploiting it. I know that you wanted to dance. I get that you wanted to dance and it didn't work out for you. That doesn't mean you should teach.
Yeah.
Those who can do and those who understand teach.
Wow.
It's not mine. I got that from someone else. I just delivered it with confidence. Yeah.
I mean, I went through more training to be a yoga teacher than I did to become a ballet dancer. Like the places that I've taught, some of the places, they don't even watch you teach class before.
Oh, I've had studios that don't.
No.
Yeah.
They don't watch me. They just say, okay, come on in.
Yeah.
You check your followers.
Yeah.
I know we're going far, aren't we?
Yeah.
That's too far.
We're going deep.
It's not too far, but even for the kids, I've heard that stuff too, that for kids when they go to summer courses, they check that too. When they're like
literally insane.
auditioning. It's insane. And then that's making, I had this one, I do social media management. We're really going off on a tangent.
No, this is great.
But that's what I do now in my career transition in addition to this.
We'll talk about that later.
Yeah. And this woman, I don't even know, it didn't work out, but a woman contacted me and said, I need to hire someone to do my daughter's social media management. She's 11 years old. And she does like competition dancing and she needs to have more followers if she wants to go places. And that was like when it hit me, because I didn't really realize, I don't know what you apply to do, to get into these places. And it's really like that. Like they're hiring people. Yeah.
What are your tags? I mean, when you go in for an audition, they want to know your social media handles.
It's like currency now, because if you're going to be posting that you're at this school, wherever.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about something that makes us a little happier. So let's talk about your work as a choreographer. When did you first become interested in creating dances, and what kind of inspires and influences the work you create?
In the beginning, I'll be super honest with you. I thought I could do it better than the people I was in class with.
That's motivating.
And that started really young. I was like, why would she do that? Why wouldn't we just do this? And
makes sense.
Yeah, and then that sort of continued, but I don't think I realized that it could be my voice. I love there's some scripture in the Bible says whatever's I'm saying it wrong. I know it's in Ecclesiastes or something, but it's like what happened yesterday will happen tomorrow. Like there's nothing new. That's it. There's nothing new under the sun. And so once I realized that the shapes are the shapes, the lines are the lines, it's just how we put them together. And we can go to another country that reads the alphabet exactly how we read it, and it sounds completely different. And I think that that's what choreographers do. We design movement in space, but we should design it within our own voice. How do we get that voice? repetition and practice. Are we all good at it? No.
I think it's maybe the most challenging art form when you
No,
think
It has
about
to be.
Oh yeah, I feel like I have bombed 90% of the time, and I have like a thing. I'm like, oh, that was good,
Yeah.
and no one needs to tell me. I don't need to read about it.
Mm-hmm.
I know that that one was a good one,
Mm-hmm.
and then you bomb again.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just think as a working choreographer, it feels unfortunate that some people are so popular they get the opportunity to fail
Mm-hmm.
More.
Yeah. So interesting.
Absolutely true. So can you tell us a little bit about the work that you're going to be doing here at the Vail Dance Festival? It's your first time here, you were
Yes,
telling us.
it is, and up close.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Damien called our associate artistic director, Masuzumi Chaya, and said, I'd like to get in contact with Hope. I know she choreographs. I would like to talk to her a little bit more. Mr. Chaya told me about that maybe in December. And then I was like, well, I haven't heard from him. Should I try to call him?
Right.
And then someone was like, yes, you should. And so I just waited. I waited. And then one day I said, you know what? I'm just going to reach out. Of course, he responded same day. So had I called months in advance,
Right.
it would have been fine. But
Okay.
this is me thinking I don't want to bother him. He's
Right.
a lot on his plate. He's president. You know, like,
We do that stuff too.
you know.
Yeah.
Hi.
And he got back to me and said, oh, why don't we try to schedule a meeting? So maybe it was going to be 15 minutes. Like he literally had 15 minutes. And I went to Juilliard and I talked to him about some of the things that I was doing. And then I gave him a book that I'd self-published. And I call it Out of My Pocket Productions because the funding came out of my pocket. Called A Collection of Moments. And they're heart lessons, things that I'd heard, things that I'd experienced, heartbreak, frustration, heartbreak with dance, heartbreak with relationships. And I put them all in a book, and he took it, said, thank you. Let's talk about Vail from last year. And then he sent me maybe a few weeks later, he said, I think I'd like for you to do this program that I have at the Kennedy Center called Demo. And he said, I'll pair you up with a dancer. And then he said, well, who would you like to dance with? Someone at Ailey? Would you like to choreograph on Matthew? And I was like, not really. I mean, I love him.
Sure.
But I would love to step out of this place and do something with someone else.
Perfect opportunity
Yeah.
to do so.
And he sent me a couple of names. And I said, Matthew, I don't know all of these people. And he said, he mentioned Lauren Lovett. And Matthew said, do it. He was like, her. And I was like, okay, cool. We scheduled a meeting. I'm scheduled to meet with Lauren. We were going to just in between her rehearsals. And after we talked for a little while, I looked at her. I said, didn't we meet 6 months ago in an elevator? And we had already had a really cool connection. We have a very similar upbringing. She lived in North Carolina for some time, and we just got along.
I can see you guys being very simpatico.
Yeah. You know, she said that I was, it shocked her the first time I called her sister, because that's how I'm like, sister friend, come here, let's look at this. And, but that's how she feels to me. And she's been through a lot, and she shared it immediately. And then I shared it. And then I was talking about the moments, and she's like, let's do it. And then we go into rehearsal, and she said, you know, I've never done anything like this before. And I was like, what do you mean? She said, well, you know, at SCB, I didn't take anything else but ballet. I said, but you all have the character classes and, you know, jazz or whatever. She said, yeah, but I wasn't in those. And I was like, so what does that mean?
Yeah, she was right, actually, because character stops. I had never had that either. It stops when you're a certain age. So if you come to school later, it's ballet.
Yeah, and so for her to tell me that I want her to do these things that involve curving her spine, and I would have to actually not say the modern technical term.
Right.
I'd have to describe what that feels like.
Sure.
And she was like, "Oh, you mean like a?" And I said, "Exactly." And it just happened, and the work just came out, and
How cool is that? So when was this? Was this in 2019 or it was the year before? Okay.
18.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like July, August.
Okay.
And then because the demo program was in October.
So we've been at those demo programs with Damien before
cool.
at the Kennedy Center. We covered one of those before, so that I can see how that's a very simpatico thing for you to do, is be there, do that, and then bring it to Vail. So it's the same thing. You haven't done it since then. That was the only time it's been performed until tomorrow night.
Until tomorrow night.
Wonderful.
And it's a little bit different. I stood behind a music stand because I was unsure of the text.
Right.
It's my first time doing it like that in that kind of environment, and putting myself and my words out on a large platform like this is extremely difficult because movement is abstract, but words are not abstract. So you're basically listening to my story, and then I've got to be as, I guess if I'm as honest as I can be, then you have insight into my spirit and my soul. And how often do you really want people to go that far?
Yeah.
And I know I've said his name a lot, but Matthew said, it's really something that you are being so transparent because it's different. But she's dancing, so it takes a little bit of the pressure off of me.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Oh, I'm so excited to see this piece. It's going to be so much fun.
Clap no matter what.
Oh,
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
We're going to be cheering you on. So tell us about your podcast. We definitely want to hear about that.
Yes,
Promote it.
It's
Please.
called Hopeful Moments.
Uh-huh.
And everything is a moment. So I looked, I love to look up words. So more than I think I ever did. But a moment is shorter than a second. But if you notice that those moments are the longest lasting, whether they're good or bad or something, but you can remember an instant. And so I wanted to have something that spoke about these particular instances in my life. And I found myself injured in December of 2018. So I wasn't able to finish the New York City Center season with Ailey. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And I was speaking and I do a lot of things. And a friend of mine was like, just do a podcast, take your mind off of it. So I did 12 episodes just in time for me to go back to work.
Great.
And so I'm picking them up again on the 1st of August.
Wonderful.
So I'll be be uploading again. But it's very interesting to hear myself. I have a couple of interviews and to have it grow, but they're just my moments.
Yeah,
I love that.
That's so fun. Another podcast born out of an injury. That's what happened
That's
with
us.
us.
Really?
Yeah, we were both injured, and so that's how we started this. So we're so happy to hear about that and support it, and we hope that all of our listeners will for sure go check it out. Is it wherever you can get your podcasts?
Yeah, SoundCloud and iTunes. Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now because it was the easiest way to do it.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
We'll tell everybody for sure
Thank
to
you.
listen.
You guys are awesome.
Thank you so much, Hope. We really
Thank you.
appreciate having you
I know
on.
I'm too like chatty Cathy.
No, that's the whole point.
Oh.
Kidding. That's what a podcast is.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us this week. If you would like to support the Conversations on Dance podcast, there are a few ways that you can help. Click over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. Download episodes when you listen to allow our analytics to better understand our listenership. Join our Facebook group, Conversations on Dance, Friends of the Pod, or you can offer a donation. Conversations on Dance has always been and will always be free to our listeners. You can help us continue to create and produce this unique behind-the-curtain look at the dance world by visiting conversationsondancepod.com/support. Thank you for tuning in. See you next week.